When life throws you a curveball, how are you going to handle adversity? Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast, where you're about to go on a journey as I interview security, business, and entertainment leaders on what it takes to stay fearless. I'm your host, Mark Ledlow, and enjoy today's episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast, brought to you by Ledlow Security Group. And we are on the road, been on the road for a while in Northern California, do some business travel. And I have a place in Sacramento, but on the road, being a business owner, what do you expect? Sometimes you got to only be on the road. So I have my studio here in the hotel. We're working on creating a studio environment here in Texas. So we're working on that project, and a rebranding of the podcast coming soon, and a media company coming soon. And in addition to Ledlow Security Group, in addition to the Fearless Mindset, and in addition to everything else I'm doing, kind of like what Chris Stitt's doing over there in the East Coast. We just had a brief little talk on what he's doing, and I'd call him a serial entrepreneur. Former State Department dude. Great minds think alike. And guess who's on the podcast right now with us? Chris Stitt. Chris, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, Mark. Thank you very much, and really appreciate the opportunity to catch up with you here in this format. I've always appreciated your advice, your support, and your friendship, and the opportunity to join you here and talk to some of your listeners is really just fantastic. So, thank you very much.
Welcome, man. You're doing some amazing things over there. I mean, I didn't know you had almost like there's a creative side of your personality of creating business opportunities for yourself after you left the government. You just got your MBA degree, right? Master's degree, and you just published a book, Scaling Pyramids, and you are just, there it is, folks. I got a copy at the Security Foundation dinner. I signed, and your first book, correct?
Yeah, my first book. So Scaling Pyramids, Leadership Lessons from a Mid-Level Bureaucrat. As you said, I spent, quite a bit of time in the government, about 28 years total in the federal government between U.S. Capitol Police and as a diplomat and security official with the Diplomatic Security Service, doing converged security around the world. And it is interesting since I left, this shift that I've made into entrepreneurship, because originally when I left, I thought I would walk into working for a company. But as I spent some time, working on myself, I found that, I was really enjoying the possibilities of entrepreneurship. And as I just mentioned to you, at this point, I'm kind of developing 3 companies at once. I've got Crisis Lead, which is helping you navigate risk and prepare for what's next. It's that security umbrella that I'm picking up some good business through. But then, as you said, I've got the book, Scaling Pyramids, Leadership Lessons from a Mid-Level Bureaucrat. And I'm really interested in turning that into a world-class leadership development platform. And then the other part of it is keynote speaking. I've had the opportunity to give talks at a number of conferences, and I've had some paid speaking engagements, and I really enjoy that. And I really enjoy the idea of being able to, help companies and organizations do 2 things. One is that whole navigate risk part, and the other part is develop their entry mid-level leaders. So it's kind of divergent, but I'm trying to tie it together into a couple of different things.
Well, congratulations on thinking outside the box.
Thank you.
That's not easy for a government guy.
No, I mean, you get programmed, you get institutionalized working for the government. And even still, as I am, engaging with clients and trying to figure out, this whole consultant gig, right? Luckily, I've got some very good friends in the industry that are providing me advice on, how to approach certain things, how to, write work orders, how to frame things in such a way that clients are more likely to, say yes, because that was a really surprising challenge, because I've always been on the other side, and the government is all about the lowest bidder. Well, I don't want to be the lowest bidder. I want to be the highest quality bidder and have them take my price anyway. So,
wow, that's a concept.
yeah. So learning that has been fun. And like you said, I got I realized I knew a whole lot about security. Didn't know a whole lot about running a security business. So that's what then led me to go ahead and get the MBA.
But does an MBA really help you run a business?
It does in a couple of ways. Number one, it does help me as I'm working on structuring what that business looks like and what I need for it in order to be successful. There were some, classes on things like marketing and developing, the whole concept of developing my business plan. But then the other part of it is it gave me a much stronger vocabulary when I'm engaging with C-suites.
I would never guess that.
Yeah, there's, my first Security 500, one of the recurring themes through the speakers was, and Security 500 is a conference in DC, usually OSAC week. I managed to go the year before I retired. But one of the recurring themes through there was that the best chief security officers, the best CSOs, they not only know the business that they are working for inside and out so they can be most effective and most contributory to it, but they also know business as a concept. They know how that C-suite thinks. They know how that C-suite evaluates risk. Coming from the government, there was no such thing as risk transference, right?
Didn't exist.
That was huge as I came out. The willingness of corporations to either transfer risk through insurance or to accept risk, because there's very little risk acceptance in the government as well. It's very much risk averse. So that getting that mindset has been huge as I've, made this move.
So the master's program gave you the language and the culture to understand where the C-suite is coming from that could be your clients.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow. I would never guess that at all.
Yeah.
And everything I've learned in my business came from a lot of mentorship. A lot of people that I know in the industry that are running large-scale organizations. I call them on the phone, say, hey, and they give me some good feedback. And just the mindset of being an agent versus the business owners are two different ways of thinking. And I see so many agents in executive protection trying to run a business, and I hear them say, oh, we're only making $5 an hour on this thing. Like, how do you keep your lights on? You're breaking even. That's like a hobby in the IRS eyes. And but that's good. That's good. You went through the MBA course. Is it MBA just in business administration? That's pretty much what it is.
Yeah, so it's an executive MBA. I got it through Quantic, School of Business and Technology. Newer school, right? They really only started in like 2018. And then it was 2 years ago that they got their full 5-year accreditation. I liked it a lot for two reasons. They hit me on LinkedIn, and I hadn't heard of them before. So I did a lot of due diligence before I said yes. But the reasons that I really liked that program were, number one, it's built as online first, right? So I really like their learning interface. One of the things you do as part of the application process is you take a couple of short classes. So you get a feel for it, and is it good for you, right? And then, throughout the course of the program, you are working with your entire cohort in the same module. So everybody's doing accounting at the same time. Everybody's doing, marketing at the same time. Everybody's doing business planning at the same time, right? And you have certain weeks where you're going to take your final exams and where you're going to do the projects for each of those modules, right? And then another part of it becomes it's all online, except that you have group projects, right? So I had 2 different groups that I was working with, and, that actually worked out really well as well, in this, Zoom world that we're in. that worked out really well, and we came up with a really good capstone project and things like that. But the other thing that I really liked about Quantic, their second premise is radically disruptive pricing. So, you can go to Wharton and spend $200,000 and get an MBA, or you can go to Harvard or one of the other major schools, right? Quantic, $15,000. Oh, and as an entrepreneur, they gave me a scholarship, and because I paid the whole thing up front, they gave me another discount. So it actually only cost me $8,000.
Smart move from a businessman.
Yeah,
I would do the same thing. After all,
yeah,
it is a piece of paper saying he took an MBA course.
yeah. No, and like I said, the knowledge and the contacts that I got of it have been great.
Do you think it really matters where you get your MBA as long as you get it, or is it all really prestige in some circles? What's your thoughts on that?
There's a couple of concepts there. Number one, if you have the Wharton MBA, the Harvard MBA, the people that you're interacting with and things like that, right? Especially if you're doing it in person and you're interacting with them, and the relationships that you build on a day-to-day basis doing that are going to add value. But if you're looking at it from my perspective, which was I need something flexible, I need something I can afford, and what I'm looking to get out of it is a better understanding of business, then I think it matters a whole lot less.
And you already have your association, your network from being in the State Department anyway, diplomatic security services, and doing what you did as an admin back in the day. So you already have the network of those guys that are already professionals in different roles in different organizations. So you have the contacts.
Yeah. So, what I found is difficult though, and this isn't, exclusive. There's a couple places where I have, but because we all came from the same place and we can basically all do a lot of the same stuff, they don't need me as much. So picking up work through that network has actually been a little bit harder. But the associations and the networks that I've built in my retirement and then post-retirement have been huge. You and I met basically through the kindness games.
Tim Wenzel and Lee Otten. Yep, they launched that thing.
Yep.
We did the 30-day shout outs and then got put in the alumni. So 30 days of doing something for 30 days straight, and then you were approved. Pretty wild. Yeah. What a thought.
Yeah. And it's that, it's that network, honestly, that has been so invaluable to me, since I retired, because it was, it's through that network that I met Mike Gips. And when my first year after retirement, I was going to skip ASIS GSX because, I hadn't really started building my business yet and didn't really, have the funding to do it. And Mike said, nope, you're going to go, and here's how. You're going to not pay for the, instructional program because you can teach most of it. He found me an Airbnb like 3 blocks from the venue for like $85 a night. And he found me super cheap airfare. And he's like, here is everything you need. You will go. And I'm like, all right, Mike, cool. But it was then through that, meeting a lot of the TKG people in person and continuing to develop those relationships. Right. And, so there's something I post on from time to time, RONI, #RONI. Return on network investment.
Oh, wow. Never thought about that.
Because a lot of companies, when they're looking at going to a conference, they're looking at simply what is the ROI. I'm spending this much to send my people to my conference. How much business is it going to directly generate from that? Well, as a consultant, I look at it as I don't know that I will generate any business directly from that. I'm not going to close a deal necessarily on the floor. But what I am going to do is I'm going to strengthen the relationships that I've got. And I'm going to find ways that I can provide value to others and, give a return on their network investment. And in turn, find a way that I can get a return on my own network investment. And that's been huge because, most of my, projects as a consultant right now have come through that.
Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
is it the book more of a business card for you, or what's been your experience after publishing it or publishing it and giving it out to people in autograph form? What's been that journey been like since publication?
So it's a little of both. And honestly, the goal on the book, I talk a lot about, security management and, security programs, crisis management. I've got a deep background in all of that. But at the same time, because of the organization that I came up in, and one of the, deliberative efforts that I engaged in learning more about leadership development is I've got this background in leadership development. And what the book has done is allowed me to explore that side of things more. And it is leading to more opportunities. So I spoke at, there's a school here called West Liberty University. It's right down the road, no affiliation with Liberty University. It's in the town of West Liberty, West Virginia. And the school's been around since, 1846. But just last Friday, I was able to go and had a paid speaking engagement where I was able to teach a session on change management in complex organizations. And, that's something that is not security related, but it is based on the concepts in my book. So, and, I've had a couple other opportunities. I've, spoken at a lot of Rotary clubs, other things like that, but I'm seeing more potential paid speaking engagements starting to come in on that as well. And that's why, when I said earlier, I'm kind of feel like I'm building 3 companies at once.
Yeah. I mean, if you can create value to a corporate enterprise through communication, being on the stage,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at some big names, like John Maxwell, for example, #1 leadership author in the world.
Yep.
I know the guy is all over the globe. I'm sure he doesn't fly commercially, and he's getting older. And I'm sure his speaking fees are probably $50,000 just to show up.
At least to get him himself versus one of the people from his, company
organization.
It's got to be.
Or if you're Tom Brady, for example, 7-time world champion, I'm sure his $100K. Who knows what? But if someone sees value in your ability, and you of course, we all know you love to talk. You have the gift of communication. You enjoy talking. You love leadership, and why not build a platform? And you're designing a website for that too, right?
Yeah. So ChristopherStitt.com is now out and available, and I'm working to refine it to, tighten my message on it. ScalingPyramids.com is out there just as right now a landing page for the book with some of the reviews. And then CrisisLead.com for that security umbrella is out there as well. So yeah, it's really an interesting process, and it's interesting to try and figure out how do I get that message out? Because I'll be honest, one of the things the book has done for me is really help me focus on my desire and my passion to help entry and mid-level personnel become entry and mid-level leaders, and it starts off with, understanding how to lead yourself, then understanding how to lead others. And then once you've got that, you'll find yourself in positions where you can lead the entire team or the entire organization. And, it's funny, as I like to say on podcasts and talks, I have never yet been the Secretary of State, right? I have never been at the ultimate apex top. But a lot of people think that that's where leadership actually starts, is you have to be in charge, the person at the top, to be a leader. And the simple fact is that's not true, right? You can have formal leadership positions and informal leadership impact from wherever you are in that organization.
Yeah, I remember hearing phrase, I think John Maxwell said it, everything rises and falls on leadership. From the President of the United States to General James Mattis, also known as Mad Dog Mattis in the Marine Corps. He hates being called that, by the way, from what I hear from people close to him. But from being a business owner to Chris Stitt and Crisis Leads, it's just from the smallest level to the highest level of that, the pyramid. It's just, if you're not a good leader, people aren't going to follow. And I heard one person say he used to be engaged in his business at one time. Once you become a great teacher, the students will follow. And the same principle applies. I think respect is earned, not given. And you have to get value to people following you, building an organization. Why are they following you? What are you adding value? How are you adding value in that person's life for them to follow you?
Exactly.
And do you have their back? And I think that's the generation listening to podcasts. I think they're really hungry for leadership, and they just can't find it. And we have a culture of anti-capitalism right now that I've never seen it before. Maybe it happened during the Depression, after the Depression era, but in my lifetime, it's kind of weird what we're seeing. This anti-corporate enterprise culture in the U.S. Like, it's bad for companies to make profit. I'm like, well, why are you in business then if you're not going to make a profit? I run a business. I run to make profit, to make money, and make a living. But I see a transition from the new generation culture of, they're just okay getting by. They don't care. And it's almost like, wow. And what leadership taught them that? Where did that thought process come from of, it's okay not to have everything? I had a hairdresser on my podcast with Chris Coleman, and we were talking about Luigi shooting of the healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson. And she told me on the podcast that, our generation just gave up. We realized we're not going to have a house. We realized we're not going to have a job that pays us 6 figures a year. So we just gave up. It's okay to have a job and just get by. We don't care anymore. I'm like, wow, where did that come from? And so I think leadership in corporate culture, the enterprise area, we have to find a way to extend that olive branch to that next generation to give them a purpose. The bottom, they don't have an identity. And I think it's up to us, being leaders in the US of A and globally, to help guide this young generation, to give them hope, give them inspiration, give them something to strive for, give them an olive branch, and get off the political spectrum. Just get off of it. Because here's the reality: we live in a republic democracy. I'm a Marine. I fought for my country during the Bill Clinton administration. He was my commander in chief. He was a Democrat, and I took an oath to defend my country against foreign enemies and domestic. And as a Marine, and when I did that, when I joined the Marines, I didn't do it as a Republican. I didn't do it as a Democrat. I did it as an American citizen wanting to serve my country. And Bill Clinton happened to be in office. I just didn't think, it's a Republican in office. No, I can't do that. Or a Democrat. I can't do that. No, I wanted to serve my country to protect its freedom. And I think the younger generation is getting pulled in this misinformation age of, are you with the right? Are you with the left?
Yeah, no, there's so much, misinformation, disinformation, malinformation out there. And I am truly amazed at the polarization. And, some of it is, the 24-hour news cycle. Some of it is the, access to that misinformation, disinformation, et cetera, online. And some of the echo chambers that people fall into, and how the algorithms will say, oh, you listened to that. Let me go ahead and present you with this next step down, the road to hell on either the left or the right. Right? So that
the road to hell,
so that you can't even have a conversation around the dinner table anymore. Right. Without, ending up in a screaming match or not speaking to your family members for 6 years. Right. And, we've kind of lost our ability to listen to each other, to converse, to be civil, to, try to understand. And it's really unfortunate for the country. And I think there's some movements out there that are trying to reverse that, and not to turn everybody into a centrist, but to help people be able to listen to difference of opinion without being offended, without getting your back up, without trying to overpower and destroy them with your own opinion. But so that you can actually have, more sensible conversations and get to the root of what are you actually after. And then there's that whole concept of analyzing where your information is coming from. And is your information, fact-based or opinion-based?
Absolutely. Right.
One of the things I do, in addition to trying to build 3 companies at once, is I teach as adjunct faculty at George Mason University. I teach, a Homeland Security course each semester. And one of the things I often, talk about with my students is understanding what your information sources are. And are you getting fact-based, nonpartisan information from at least one of your sources? Or are you, looking at only things that are only going to reinforce the views that you have and, pull you further down that rabbit hole? So there's actually a really neat tool out there called the Ad Fontes News Media Bias Chart. And what it does is they've got evaluators on staff, and they look at various articles, news shows, things like that, and they rate it. Was this ad-based or opinion-based? Was this, left or right, biased? And then they plot it on a chart. And then over time, you have enough articles from a certain source, and you can look at, that source. Where does it fall on that chart? And it's really interesting. And keep in mind, news is a business.
Absolutely is.
So their goal is to get more viewers, get more subscribers, things like that, right? So it's very interesting to see over time how these news sources actually shift on that chart as they pursue the business that they're after. You've actually seen some become more, less opinion, more fact, and more centrist. You've seen others that have gone the other direction.
So true. I think I saw that really explode after COVID. It just seemed like everybody well, you're going to get the shot or you're not going to get the shot. Then you had a fraction of folks that anti-vax, and you had the ones that are pro-vax, and then they're all fighting on social media. I mean, you saw this discord going on, and do we believe the government to get vax? Do we not? And then, I'm not going to talk to you ever again. I'm going to disown you if you get that vax. And then you're going to cause me to get sick if you get the vax. And just all this mudslinging stuff over vaccines and COVID.
And then you had the real conspiracy theorists that they're saying, oh, the vaccine isn't actually a vaccine. It's just a microchip implanted inside you. and utter nonsense like that people believed in.
I remember that. Yeah. And it just spun. It just kept on going and going and going. It's just like, whoa. And then just the polarization just from that. Like, wow. Is that where we are as a society? And then the misinformation, the propaganda from social media, this is like, holy cow, this is insane.
So, and this isn't something that I've looked at or really thought about before, but I'll throw this out, which is one of the other things you had during COVID was that whole shift to remote work. All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what happens there is you are then not sitting in front of people having conversations with a diverse group of people that you would normally have when you're in the office. Instead, you've got, and I'm not saying remote work is good or bad. What I'm saying was the fracturing of that natural rhythm of relationship. And then the other thing it did was it gave you then more time to, do your doom scrolling on your phone or on your computer and to go down those rabbit holes to hell, and with no one to, sit and say the next morning at work, hey, I read this article about this, and somebody, and have that person say, oh, interesting, here's a different perspective. And to get those other perspectives through those natural rhythms of relationship that were disrupted through COVID and the shift to remote work. So I think that really accelerated that part of it really accelerated the polarization as well.